Finally. Damn it. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm just waiting for you to get in a better mood.
Oh, pain in the butt. All right,
Do I get you some chocolate?
Nah,
No?
nah.
Well, it helps me.
All right, you ready? You ready? You ready? You ready? You ready? All right. You go. You go. I don't see anything moving there. Yeah, all right. I see wheels moving. Okay, we can start.
We can start. You still don't want chocolate?
No, I still don't want
Okay.
chocolate.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the typical questions everybody would ask at the beginning, just to get an idea of who I'm talking to on a formal level. You were born when?
March 13th, 1932.
Your full name?
James Thornton Mason, Jr.
So your daddy was James Thornton Mason Sr.
I guess since they said I'm James Thornton Mason, Jr.
Right.
Yeah, I never used the junior.
No?
No.
Did ever anybody call you Thornton?
No.
I heard that people call you sometimes Jim and sometimes James, and I got confused. Why is that?
Jim's a nickname for James.
Oh, okay. I thought that they're two different.
Now, Dan for Daniel, Jim for James.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And you were born where?
In Nashville, Tennessee. Speaking of names, Natalie.
Natalie.
Nat.
Don't do the TH. There's
Natalie.
no TH. Natalie.
Natalie. Okay, is that for Nathaniel? A male name would be Nathaniel?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Okay.
So I'm talking to James. They all call you Mr. James Mason. I like that when I said yesterday to some people, I talked to James, and they said, no, it's Mr. Mason. So I'm talking to Mr. Mason and having his story told to all these people that should know that Mr. Mason is a walking history book. I would like, if it's possible, to go back to 1932 and talk a little bit about the historical environment. There's no war yet. War comes out 39. Nashville, is there music? Is there a lot of music taking place?
I was born in 32.
Right.
And the headlines in 1932 was Lindbergh is still in the dark. I don't know why Lindbergh was in the dark, or maybe his flight hadn't been seen yet.
Right.
But those were the headlines the day that I was born. I can, far back as I can remember, I don't know, I would have been maybe 5, 6. I remember playing with kids. I mean, that's as far back as I go, man, playing with the different kids in the neighborhood. I remember going to a one-room schoolhouse. I remember walking out in the country to get to school.
Right.
And I remember when we became property owners and owned our own homes, and then we became the middle-class blacks. And I grew up middle class, so I guess 6, 7. The music of that time was just the end of the old country blues things like Bucka White and the one-string guitar players, those people.
Okay.
Yeah, I was born practically in the age of the upcoming rhythm and blues scene.
And you were 3 children, 2 sisters and one boy.
Yeah.
And your parents, you said you come from the middle class. What did your parents work? What did they do?
Middle class in that time was being a property owner.
Okay.
Most,
did they work? Did they have a job?
Yeah, not so much. I mean, we had money.
But where did the money come from?
We need to go back,
Yeah, we'll go back
okay?
there.
Because you're asking me about me and about that's two separate tracks there,
Okay.
and we'll get to that track later.
Okay.
But the money came from my mother's mother. Mother was a slave, and they were some freed Masons in the family, and I was a Buffalo Soldier in the family. The freed Masons, they lived in Galveston. They were very wealthy black people. They acquired property, and they gave some of the property to my grandmother. And my grandmother, my uncle on the other side was a Buffalo Soldier. They acquired property. They lived in Chicago, that area. And they, in turn, bequeathed some of the property to my mother, their daughters, their family. And we wound up owning 3 or 4 houses on the same block in family. We owned the house that we lived in, and we bought the house next to us.
Mm-hmm.
My cousins owned the house next to that house, and the house next to that house was owned by the Nixes. So we owned this house, this house, this house. So this is all Masons.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to picture how you grew up. What was the environment? Because to me, if you say it's middle class, that implies also a good education. Is that true?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's conflicting because the how I grew up, where I grew up, when I grew up, you're asking me generic questions, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. I remember growing up when people were being hung and we couldn't go out to go to school. And I was still a young kid. I grew up where kids, black and white, we played together because where I lived, where the property owners were, if you went up the hill this way, it was white. If you went up the hill this way, it was black. If you went up the hill in front of me, it was black. If you went up the hill behind me, it was white. So in this little circular area right here, we called it Salt and Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in this Salt and Pepper neighborhood. And having young white friends and us growing up playing cowboys and Indians together when it was time to go someplace. And they said, come on, Jim, let's go with us. Come on, James. And then mom go, he can't go.
Right.
So I grew up in the he can't go era. That was a white swimming pool 2 blocks up the street, but we could hang on the wire fence and watch the people swim, but we couldn't swim in the pool. If we swam in the pool, they wanted to drain the pool because we were black. So we had to go all the way across town to 28th Avenue and go to the black park, to the black swimming pool. Now, as I said, separate but equal, it was separate but unequal.
And how was it in school? How many pupils were in one class where you were?
It was an average school. Schools are schools.
But black and white together.
Yeah, just a regular classroom.
Mm-hmm.
10, 15 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't big, huge classes like we have today, maybe 10 or 15 kids, which was a full load at that time, Yeah.
So when you got into puberty, you became kind of a little rebellion. Is that
I was
correct?
I was rebellious from before puberty.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
So how did your mom like that?
My mother and I did not get along. We did not get along. And I understand why. I mean, we would get along now, but we didn't get along then because she wanted the best for us. She wanted me to get an education. She wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that because during that era, the blacks had 2 professions. They could be a teacher, a preacher, a doctor, or a lawyer, all within our own community. Okay. Well, then that's where, the people went, and that's what they were supposed to be. Go to school, get your education, become one of those. I didn't want to be neither one of them.
What did you want to be?
I wanted to be a blues musician. I wanted to play blues. I wanted to play music.
I'm sure she loved that.
Yeah. And we go to church on Sunday, and after church services were out, all the kids would go to, we called it the drugstore then. Pharmacies, they call it now. We would go to the drugstore and they had soda jerks, the counter where you could get, your malts and all this stuff, the guys with the white caps on. Well, they didn't have the white caps, but they had the soda jerks in our neighborhood. And the kids after church, they'd all go up here. They'd be sitting down, drinking their milkshakes and eating their banana splits. and I'd be right across the street at the juke joint, standing at the back door listening to the blues musicians.
Mhm.
You know, and all the parents on the way home, oh, Miss Mason, I saw your boy. He was over there standing behind the juke joint where they was drinking and gambling. And they was. But I wasn't. You know, I'm listening to the music. So I'm seeing all of this, and it's like not very good for my middle class family. You know, no. Not for me. You know, it didn't affect the rest of them, but it's like, oh, your son. You know,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, that's the way it is. Because I like the music. It was the devil's music, you know, so it's like.
So what did your mom do with you?
I kept on being rebellious. And we would go to the grocery store, and the grocer would go, what do you want, Annie? You know, they just had any kind of name they would call you. And I'd go, she ain't your Annie, she's my mama. And it got to the place where the white folks who were hanging people knew my mom relatively well. They got along. I was just a bad one. So they said, you know, you should do something with him because otherwise he's going to get killed, hung or something, because I'm one of them uppity niggas. So my mother sent me to a military academy.
And you were 15, right? When she sent you away.
Yeah, somewhere in my teens, yeah. 13, 14, 15. I came back at 16. No, I was around 13.
Do you remember how it felt when she said to you, go to
I was
that?
glad to go. I
You
wanted
were
to
glad.
I wanted to get the hell out of there. It's like most families, you know, home at 5 o'clock for dinner. I don't care about being home at 5 o'clock for dinner. If I'm playing, I want to keep on playing, you know. In the house by 10 o'clock at night. Well, I'm going to the radio station to listen to the musicians playing the music. So I'm walking home after all the buses have stopped, and she's got the door locked because you ain't in by 10 o'clock. Door's locked. I don't care who you are, what culture. That's it. You know, strict. So I would go around, my dad would let me in the window. I climb in the window. You know, so they were glad to get rid of me. And I was glad to go. Let me tell you my life story.
I don't interrupt. You just keep talking.
If you want to ask me a question about where I'm at, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you say, well, wait, explain more of that to me. Yeah. But I don't want to have to start here, you know, and then jump to here and fill in behind. I want to, as we go, you can ask the pertinent questions about we're doing, say, generations. I want to do this generation, what happened to this generation from A to Z.
Okay, so you go ahead. Shall we start this?
Just hear them talk about the spirituals, you know, in the black church, because they were storytellers. I mean, we were doing a story about the crucifixion. It was started when Christ was a baby, how they found him in the reeds, and he grew up. And as he grew up, it was this kind of world that he grew up in. And the Pontius Pilate was the one that was going to be sure that this didn't happen and blah, 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 blah. And when he got to be this age, this happened. And when they didn't do that, they washed their hands. He told the story so you could picture it as he went along, you know? And that's the way we tell our life. We're storytellers. Like Native Americans, I mean, each culture has its own way of describing itself. But what has happened, and I understand why too, because for time, expediency, you know, fit into format, and you don't have time for all these long rambling stories. Don't work, you know. So you have to pick the highlights. And that's what happens. Well, what I want to do is I want to tell you my story. You can pick the highlights out anytime you want to afterwards, but the whole story, because the whole story, if you're going to do a book, that's what's going to be the book. But that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the radio, what I've done since I've been at the station, I have 2 shows. I'm the only person there with 2 radio shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the morning show is just eclectic. I might play Sinatra. I might play this one. I might play that. I might play Bob Marley. It's all during the time, and you make it fit, you know. The evening show, when I first started from 9 to 10, was called Let's Talk About It.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a public affairs program. Well, I've kept those 2 slots and I'm developing them. What I'm doing is I'm giving one of those slots to Willis Jackson. I said, develop the Thursday night slot for your groups, and you can do your music night live there. Because we have a Wednesday night live. It's what the station's been doing for years, but they get all the little white groups and all these little groups and everything. We don't have an outlet really for us. And if we book in there, there's so many of those groups booked until it's like we're number 10 every time. So what I've done, I'm taking my Thursday night and developing it for live shows. So we can have our live shows anytime we get a group. We can bring it in and do it ourselves. So this is what I've done since I've been at Stanford. Let's take a break and come back and I'll tell you a story.
Okay.